welcome back to another video. So I am filming, as you can see, I am filming in a different location today. I am actually in my bedroom today, and the next couple of videos you'll probably see will be me in my room, just because there's some stuff going on outside and too noisy to film in my office right now. So yeah, I'm filming in my room today. This video is actually going to be my discussion video for February, and since February is, you had Valentine's Day on the 14th, and February I kind of associate it with Valentine's Day and love, and I feel like probably for a lot of people February has become like an association with love and Valentine's Day and all that stuff. And so I figured for my discussion for February, why not talk about love? Love, sex, and relationships in books. So that is what we are talking about today. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. So I'm going to start off with talking about love and relationships in books, because let's face it, we can't get away from it anywhere in books nowadays. Like, any book you pick up to read, there's always a romance element to it. Especially YA books, you are not going to escape a romance relationship in YA. That's just not gonna happen. So it's pretty much everywhere, the main characters, whether it's the main characters or the side characters, but usually for the most part it's always the main characters. Not that the side characters don't have relationships, they do as well, but there's always, some relationship, some romance that the main characters are getting themselves into in the books. So let's talk about relationships and love in the books with characters. So, one trend that had been going on for a while, luckily I don't see this as much in books anymore, which I'm glad, because it was very, very annoying, and I'm sure a lot of people have said that as well. And that is the insta-love that happens with characters. You get a character, you get the two main characters, and when I say insta-love, I mean you get the two main characters, they meet, they fall in love, and by the end of it, it's like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I can't live without you. I can't go on without you. And you're just sitting there going, really? You met the dude a week ago. Really? You're gonna go there? Like, seriously, insta-love was one of the things that drove me crazy, especially with some books. Like I said, it does seem to be getting better, and I feel like we're starting to move away from the insta-love train, which is great because, like I said, annoying. Most people take their time in relationships, or, most people take time to fall in love. It doesn't happen instantaneously like that. Like, you get to know someone, you go out for a while, start getting to know them better, hanging out, and then after a while of being together and developing feelings, you fall in love. But it's not like something that happens in a matter of a couple days or even a week. So I do like that, we're starting to move away from that insta-love trend, and we're starting to see more realistic relationships and ones that take their time to build. Ones where, the characters either start off as friends first, before they start in a dating relationship, or, there is that other trope that I talked about before, which was the hate to love trope. And I did say when I talked about it in my Throne of Glass series review, I did say that's a trope that's done a little too much in that series, but one thing that I actually do like about this trope is that it gives you time, it gives the characters time to actually form a real relationship. It's not the immediately love at first sight, saw you across the room, sparks flew, and then we were together. It gives the characters time to, realize, hey, this guy might not be as bad as I was first thinking he is. Okay, I can kind of get along with him. Okay, so maybe I kind of like him. And then the feelings start to grow slowly but surely. So that's one reason why I like that trope. Because it does take its time and slowly builds the relationship between the characters. And not that you have to have this trope to do it that way. You can still build a relationship between the two characters slowly, without having them hate each other first. They can just, start off as friends and then get to know each other and develop a relationship from there. And so I just like seeing more of when they take their time and it builds up rather than the automatic, now we're together, now I love you. So I like when the relationships slowly build up over time and it's not this super fast whirlwind romance. I also think this is one reason why TV shows, I feel like, are sometimes better at portraying the progression of a relationship than books or movies. Because with the TV show, hopefully, depending on how good the show is, but hopefully you'll have several seasons for the relationship between the characters to grow and to really, give them time to really get to know each other and connect and grow, before anything serious like I love yous come out. So, for example, a couple TV show relationships that does this very well, that are, slowly built over time. And I love the couples. They're so adorable. And I like it that it took time to get them together, because I think it just makes their relationship so much better. But anyway, so a couple examples. One, Oliver and Felicity on Arrow. I love them so much, and ever since Felicity came on the show, I have just been waiting. As ever since she started working for Oliver as the Arrow, I was like, okay, something's gotta happen with those two, because she's so adorable and cute and funny, and I love Felicity, and Oliver, of course, I love him too. And so I've just been waiting for so long for them to get together. And by the way, if you're not all caught up on Arrow, I would probably mute this section, at least until the Arrow picture comes down off the screen, because there might be some slight spoilers here if you're not all caught up on the show. So, just fair warning. But anyway, like I was saying, I love how Oliver and Felicity, like, it took them a while, but I was so excited when they finally got together. It took them a few seasons, but when they finally did, I was like, yes, yes, so cute. They're finally together, so cute. And then they got engaged, and I was like, yes, awesome, so cute. I love them. And then stupid writers had to break them up, and I was just like, what? No! They were great. Yes, they had their issues, but hey, what real life couple doesn't have their issues? Yeah, they've got things they need to work on. Oliver's got things he needs to work on. Felicity's got things she needs to work on. But hey, that's real life. They're real characters, real people. And that's what a relationship is. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not all easy. And so I really liked their relationship. And I liked, I would have liked to see them overcome the struggles in their relationship. And they broke them up, and I was just so sad and heartbroken. But I have not lost hope. I do feel like eventually, somewhere down the line, they will end up back together and they will be so cute when they do. So I have not lost hope, and I am rooting for them to work things out and get back together. I'm waiting for that to happen. So, and with that, I'll say one of my other favorite couples, I'm going old school with this one. One of my other favorite couples is Piper and Leo from Charmed. Oh my gosh, I love Piper and Leo. And their relationship is one that had so many ups and downs, and it was like a roller coaster of a ride with their relationship. Because first off, it started as being forbidden since he was their white lighter. So it was a forbidden romance from the beginning. And so they had their issues to kind of overcome. And then for a while, they got separated, and then they were back together, and then she lost him, and she had to get him back, and all of this craziness. But in the end, they were together, and they grew old together, got to see their grandchildren grow up together. And so I just love Piper and Leo, and I love their relationship, and I love, again, they're one that it took a while for them to come together. It wasn't immediate, it wasn't easy by any means. Of course, their relationships had a lot of obstacles to overcome, so it wasn't easy for them to be together. But it was a slow build, and I like that. And that's the other thing I like about seeing a relationship. And it's something that I don't, especially with the insta-love relationships in books, you really don't see this. But I like being able to see the actual struggles that the characters have in their relationships and having to overcome certain obstacles in their relationship and overcome their differences. So I feel like that makes it more real and more believable, more, you buy into it more. And that, I feel like, is something, you don't get at all with insta-love, obviously, because it's like, hey, we just met, but I'm in love with you. I love you. I'm head over heels for you. And I'm going to ignore your flaws and I'm gonna be blind to your defects, and yeah, our relationship is gonna be great because I'm just gonna ignore all our differences and we'll be great together. When it's like, no, not real. I want to see, I want that realness. I want to see their struggles and I want to see how they handle it together and how they overcome it. So I do want to see that more in books. Another thing I want to see with characters in their relationships is I don't want the characters to neglect their family and friends, because sometimes it feels like when the main character enters a relationship with the love interest, it kind of seems sometimes that everyone else kind of falls by the wayside. Like, they neglect their friends and family, and it's all about this person that I'm in a relationship with. And again, that's not real life. And I feel like, in books, even if it's a fantasy world that we're entering in, I feel like there should be parts of it that mirrors real life. And real life, you're not going to ignore your family and friends just because you entered into a new relationship. You're not going to neglect everyone else. And the person you're in a relationship with will hopefully not want you to neglect your family and friends either. Because if they do, that is a huge red flag, okay? If the person you're in a relationship in wants it to be all about them and doesn't mind you neglecting family and friends, that's a huge red sign, red flag that's gonna be an abusive relationship. Just, kind of a warning for girls out there, and even guys too, because it's gonna happen with even guys. So just a warning out there, look for the red flags. That's a huge red flags. We talked about in one of my groups this week at work, we talked about abusive relationships and what are some of the red flags to look for. And if someone is trying to isolate you away from friends and family, it's a huge red flag sign to get out as quick as you possibly can. The other thing I will say is I want to see when characters are in relationships in books, having them included in things that they're doing with family and friends. So it's not always just those two characters alone, I guess. But it's these two main characters are in a relationship, but hey, we're going to hang out and do something with other friends or together with family, kind of, I guess, just not always have it be centered on them, but have other people included. Because, again, that's real life. That's what's believable, When you're in a relationship, you don't always do stuff with that person. Sometimes you do. I mean, I'm probably not explaining this very well, or getting my point across very well, but you do stuff with family and friends with them along, right? Say your family's having a barbecue, okay? You're gonna bring your boyfriend, girlfriend with you to your family's barbecue, right? So it's not always them on dates alone or doing stuff by themselves, but having that family and friends included in their activities and being a part of their lives. So that is something I do want to see more with characters in books. My last point I want to make with characters being in relationships and being in love, and this is a very important point, is not to let the character lose their identity in a relationship, unless that's something you want to do because there's a purpose or a reason for it. As far as the storyline goes or the plot goes, maybe that's part of the story, is them figuring out their identity apart from the relationship. I don't know. But for the most part, if that's not going to be something that's part of your storyline or your plot, then I would say, something to be very careful with is to not let your characters lose themselves or lose their identity in a relationship. I should still, even though this character has entered a new relationship, I should still feel like, okay, I know who this person is separate of the relationship. I know what they like, what they don't like. I know who they are. They've still got their own identity. And I think sometimes that can get lost when they get into a relationship, because then it either becomes all about the other person or all about the relationship. So I like to see that happen. So those are pretty much kind of my main points that I wanted to talk about when it came to love and relationships with characters in books. Now, for the last point I kind of want to briefly talk about is sex in books. And I don't have too much to say on this, but I do have a little bit that I want to touch on. So that's why I'm bringing it up in this video as well. So sex in books, I feel like I'm okay with having sex in books, but how much is shown or how much we see of the sex scene, I think there needs to be a purpose to how much is shown or how much we see with the sex in books. Obviously, sex is a part of relationships, marriage. So there is going to be that element, that aspect in books. And like I said, I don't have a problem with that, but it's also, it also depends on how it's done and how we see it. I feel like in books, it's better if you leave it to the imagination. Like, you don't really need to go into much detail and have it be super graphic to get your point across. I think leave it to the imagination. But again, it also depends on your purpose for using it and what you're trying to do with it. Now, I will say, for example, so I'll give you an example of one scene from Crown of Midnight that I think is just perfect. Like, it's done really well. And if you haven't read Crown of Midnight, this is kind of a spoiler. So I'm going to put a picture of Crown of Midnight up here. And once the picture goes down, it's safe to unmute and listen. But I'm just going to really quick read like a page and a half of what's in Crown of Midnight. Because like I said, I feel like this scene right here sets up really great what I mean by leave it to the imagination. We don't really need that much details or to know that much. So, says, there had never been any line between them, only his own stupid fear and pride. because from the moment he pulled her out of that mine in Endovier, and she had set those eyes upon him, still fierce despite a year in hell, he'd been walking towards this, walking toward her. So Chaol brushed away her tears, lifted her chin, and kissed her. The kiss obliterated her. It was like coming home, or being born, or suddenly finding an entire half of herself that had been missing. His lips were hot and soft against hers, still tentative, and after a moment he pulled back far enough to look into her eyes. She trembled with the need to touch him everywhere at once, to feel him touching her everywhere at once. He would give up everything to go with her. She twined her arms around his neck, her mouth meeting his in a second kiss that knocked the world out from under her. She didn't know how long they stood on the roof, tangled up in each other, mouths and hands roving until she moaned and dragged him through the greenhouse, down the stairs and into the carriage waiting outside. And then there was the ride home, where he did things to her neck and ear that made her forget her own name. They managed to straighten themselves out as they reached the castle gates and kept a respectable distance as they walked back to her room, though every inch of her felt so alive and burning that it was a miracle she made it back to her door without pulling him into a closet. But then they were inside her rooms, and then at her bedroom door, and he paused as she took his hand to lead him in. "Are you sure?" She lifted a hand to his face, exploring every curve and freckle that had been so impossibly precious to her. She had waited once before, waited with Sam, and then it had been too late. But now there was no doubt, no shred of fear or uncertainty, as if every moment between her and Chaol had been a step in the dance that led to this threshold. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," she told him. His eyes blazed with hunger that matched her own, and she kissed him again, tugging him into her bedroom. He let her pull him, not breaking the kiss, as he kicked the door shut behind them. And then there was only them, and skin against skin, and when they reached the moment when there was nothing more between them at all, Selena kissed Chaol deeply and gave him everything she had. With that scene, as you can see, I feel like it shows us, like, obviously we're not idiots, obviously. We know they had sex at that point, but we didn't need every single little detail of, what happened. He touched her there, she touched him here. Like, we know they had sex. That was the whole point. And the rest, we can leave it up to our own imaginations. Now, the series later on, the fifth book, there's a couple more sex scenes, but it just totally shifts dynamics in the books later on, and it is nowhere like this scene that I just read. It's not like, okay, they give us a little bit and then leave the rest up to our imaginations, and obviously, because we're not idiots, we know they had sex. But in the later on books, it gets really graphic and detailed, and it's like, whoa, we're seeing everything now. They went from PG-13 in here to now we're in rated R. So I don't know why the shift, but it was just an interesting shift that I picked up. But with that, I would say, like I said before, if you're going to show us everything that happens while they're having sex, if you're going to be that graphic, I would ask that there's a purpose to it, because, and this is just me, so, you guys might disagree, but I feel like I personally don't need to know all of this to get the picture, to know that they had sex. So if you're going to go into all of these details and be graphic with it, I would like to know the purpose behind it. Is there a purpose behind it? And when I say is there a purpose behind it, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. With Redeeming Love, the main character, Angel, she's been sexually abused and traumatized since a child. So I can understand if, you're doing a scene where it's like, if you had a character who was sexually abused or who was traumatized, and maybe there are certain things that makes them relive the trauma. So if someone touches them in a certain area, or if they touch them in a certain way, it brings back the trauma back up for that character. So if you're trying to show that, and you're trying to show, how the character has healed, if there's been healing for the character, and you're showing that now, she can be intimate with this other character, they can have this intimacy, and, if he touches her in a certain way or in a certain place, the trauma doesn't come back up, or maybe not as strongly as, not strong of a reaction as it was originally. I can see going into detail if that was the purpose. If you were doing something like that, or, something similar along those lines, I can understand the purpose of going into details and being graphic, because now you're not just showing it just to show it, but, you're getting into the psychology of the character and showing how she felt being in this intimate moment and reliving the trauma that she had. So in that case, I understand, and I'm okay with it being like that. But if there's no purpose to it, and you're making it graphic and giving us all these details just for the heck of it, I'd rather do without. Honestly, I'd rather have it be like the scene that I read you guys, the page that I read earlier, where, it left it up to our imaginations. And so I would prefer that approach over getting into all the details. Again, like I said, unless there is a reason and a purpose for it. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts and opinions on love, sex, and relationships in books. Let me know in the comments below, you guys, what you think of all of this with books. Like, do you think most relationships in books are portrayed in a realistic, accurate manner, or do you feel like a lot of it is not realistic or believable? And do you feel like there's a trend moving away from insta-love in books? I feel like they are moving away from insta-love, but I feel like there's also some things that could be done better with relationships in books. But what are your thoughts on that? And also, what are your thoughts on sex in books? Should there even be sex in books? If so, how much do you show and how much do you leave up to the imagination? So leave me a comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and of course please be respectful of everyone's opinions, because we all have different opinions, so I would just ask that everyone is respectful of differing opinions. And yeah, I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye.